The night a memo slid under my door, the ink smelled of fear and possibility, and I knew the city would wake to a different skyline tomorrow, a different rhythm in the rooms where money talks. My name is Helena Montez. I am 35, and I am a senior bank executive in New York City, someone who can hear the hum of numbers before anyone else can hear it, someone who has learned to read a room the way a sailor reads the tide. My hidden ambition is not glory, but a durable order, a map of every move that keeps the lights on for families who sleep with their doors bolted and their hopes open, a plan that refuses to be derailed by a single loud voice or a single loud mistake. The personal event that frames this episode is a relationship that started as mentorship and bent toward power games. A board member who learned to smile and stay close even as he weighed and threatened my reputation. A man who believed he could steer the ship and remind me who bought the tickets to the show. We had shared lunches, late calls, a handshake that felt like an agreement, and I believed his advice would help me stand taller in a city that respects the bold and the steady in equal measure. Then came the moment when he slid a private memo under my door and told me that if I kept pushing for the kind of change that would strip him of influence, he would reveal a past mistake I had buried, a misstep that could ruin the public image I spent years building and would cost the bank millions of dollars in trust and potential customers. I did not blink because I had learned to read fear the way some people read weather maps, and I could tell the storm would either drown me or sharpen my edge. The truth I held on to was simple. Power without watchers is a dangerous thing, and ambition without boundaries is a quiet disaster waiting to happen. My hidden ambition had grown in the same soil as my respect for the people who stood behind every ledger and every loan approval. The families who counted on our work when their own hopes hung by a thread. I did not let his threat rattle me, not then. Not after I learned that the hardest thing to guard is the moment when someone believes your loyalty lies only in the chair you sit in. I began to move in the shadows, not with anger but with method, building a quiet bridge between possibility and payback, a path that would not scorch the earth, but would scorch his ability to do harm. I found a line of credit and a discreet group of investors who trusted me to do what I said I would do. Not to chase a banner headline, but to secure a future for people who counted on us to be steady, to be honest, to be better than the rumor mill in the lobby. I started to acquire small, then larger blocks of shares in the man who thought his appetite for control could outpace the city's rules. The man who believed his name alone could move mountains. The man who did not realize that mountains move when the base is not about him, but about everyone else. My plan did not grow from hate, but from a need to protect the vulnerable and to restore a balance that had already tilted too long toward a few loud voices. The more I layered the strategy, the more I saw that revenge could be a stain if it was not tempered by justice and by a deeper respect for who we were serving, not just what we could extract from the moment. The day of the meeting loomed like a storm cloud that refuses to break early, heavy with the smell of coffee, new contracts, old debts, and the careful steps of people who have learned to measure every breath they take in a room full of risk. He arrived with his easy smile and his practiced confidence, certain that the room would bend to his will the moment he cleared his throat. I rose, not to meet him with fury, but to invite the truth into the open. I spoke about the bank's future, about the need for stronger governance, about the lines of accountability that protect our customers and our employees, about the long arc of a plan that would hold up when the waves came, not just when the sun shone. Then I did something I had prepared for a long while. I did not accuse him. I did not threaten him with scandal. I let the board see the architecture of my plan. a quiet rebalancing of power that would give the bank resilience and a voice to those who had none. I revealed the mechanism by which the change would come, a careful reallocation of influence that did not punish but redirected and renewed, and I showed that the shares I had acquired had given me the readiness to guide us through a transition that would be both fair and decisive. The moment the documents passed across the table, the murmurs died, and the room listened in a way they had not since the first quarterly report came. The votes moved in my favor, not as a triumph of vengeance, but as a claim on responsibility, a return to a principle that had been buried under the glitter of headlines and the noise of ego. He remained, briefly stunned, then silent, a man who had believed the city would always bow to a single voice, a man who saw himself as indispensable, and who did not realize that the indispensable person is the one who can step back when the hour demands it. After the decision, the corridor carried echoes of a different conversation, the kind you hear only when the air has learned to hold a secret, and I walked through it with a calm that felt almost ceremonial. There is a cost, I thought, to stepping into a power that once looked at you with suspicion, and now looks at you with a report in hand and a ledger at your side. The cost is not the loss of a friend. It is the realization that trust, the very glue that holds a team together, is a currency you must keep in constant bargaining with yourself, because the moment you stop paying attention to it, the balance skews, and the very people you vowed to protect become potential casualties in a game you never wanted to play. Yet for every risk I took, there was a return in the form of a future I could shield from the kind of storms that had once threatened to swallow it. The bank grew steadier. The street-level clients felt a measure of relief, and the employees who had long carried the weight of bad news found a reason to believe that the institution they served would not crumble when the wind shifted. In the quiet hours after the crowd dispersed, I stood by the tall windows and watched the river below the bridges, listening to the distant hum of traffic and the freight trains that carried goods across the country. The city had a way of reminding you that time moves and plans must move with it, and that courage is not loud sounds, but a stubborn, patient insistence to do what is right, even when the world wants you to do what is easy. The revenge I had allowed myself to entertain finally settled into a state of discipline, because I learned that justice served cold is not just a momentary satisfaction, but a commitment to the future. A pledge to build structures that outlast the thrill of the past and the cunning of a single man who believed he could bend the ship to his will. I would not pretend the cost was nothing, for there are days when the memory of fear lingers in the corners of the mind. And there are nights when the doubt tries to creep in and tell you that you have become the very thing you set out to replace. But those thoughts fade when I walk into my office and feel the weight and steadiness of the chair beneath me, when I see the new governance documents lying on the desk, when I hear the soft sound of the city waking up to a bank that has learned to listen as well as to push. And I am reminded that a person who learned to speak the language of numbers with fearless honesty can also learn to speak the language of people with respect. And that the true victory lies not in the punishment of a foe, but in the quiet, unwavering creation of a future where risk is managed, integrity is valued, and the shadows of fear are kept in their proper place, behind the bright light of accountability. As I step back from the window and straighten the blazer at my shoulders, I tell myself that this is not the finish line, but a turning point, a hinge on which every other door in my life will swing toward a more determined, more just, more enduring skyline. And I know that when the next challenge rises, I will meet it not with desperation, but with a cool, clear plan, and a resolve that whispers that the real power is not the ability to lock people out, but the capacity to invite them in, and to let the bank become a place where every honest effort is rewarded, and every risk taken with care becomes a step toward a future we all deserve. A future I will defend with the same quiet patience and the same steady courage that carried me here, until the city itself believes that a woman who loves numbers can also love justice. Tonight I sign the mantle of responsibility a little firmer than before, not for revenge alone, but for a future where my work lights the way for others. And I feel the city listening, a soft, steady chorus behind the glow of the skyline. And in that chorus I hear my own name carried forward. Helena Montez, a woman who chose to lead with empathy and steel, and who will keep choosing that path every morning from now on. There is more to be done, and I am ready. I am ready to protect the people who rely on us, to mentor the women who will follow, to set a standard so high that even the brightest threats cannot corrupt what we have built, and to prove, once again, that justice served cold can be the purest form of progress when it begins with accountability, ends with integrity, and continues with the courage to begin again.